Rolling, rolling. This is Bob Shumaker.
Okay, Bob, tell me about this painting.
Yes, I'd like to explain this painting that's before me here. It's an original, and it has a story that goes along with it. And the story is that about 10 years ago, I met a fellow military officer. We were both involved with the Freedom Museum in Manassas, Virginia. And he is a retired Marine colonel named Jerry Martin. But he wasn't always a colonel. At one time, he was a first lieutenant in the Marine Corps. And he was in Vietnam, and he came across a dead Vietnamese. So he rolled the guy over, and out of his knapsack, he pulled some of the things he had with him. And it turns out that the Vietnamese, North Vietnamese, was a combat artist. And what came out was this painting. And the remarkable thing is that it's a painting of me being captured by the Vietnamese. I think there was some description too. I don't see it here with me right now, but it identified me as being the guy captured. I think I'm better looking than this guy, but what? Who knows? Okay, this is a painting that of a POW being captured, and there's a story that goes along with this painting. I have a friend that I met about 10 years ago in connection with the Freedom Museum in Manassas, Virginia, and he's a retired Marine Corps colonel named Jerry Miller. But when he was a first lieutenant, he was in Vietnam, and he came across a dead Vietnamese in his patrol. He was a North Vietnamese soldier, and he rolled him over, and it turned out that the Vietnamese was a combat artist, and out of his backpack came this portrait. And the surprising thing is there was some literature that went along with it too. It was a picture of me being captured, and this is me. This is one of the guards there with an AK-47, and it was surprisingly accurate. You know, there are even some civilians in the background, as there was in my situation. So they put a lot of, the Vietnamese put a lot of emphasis on propaganda, and so this is probably used in their propaganda warfare.
Wow. Wow.
Painting of an American POW, American pilot being captured by a North Vietnamese group of militia and soldiers. And there's a story behind this. This is an original. I have a friend named Jerry Marvel, who was a retired Marine colonel. But when he was a first lieutenant in Vietnam, leading a platoon, he came across a dead North Vietnamese, and he rolled him over, and in his knapsack he had this painting, and it turns out that he was a combat artist, and apparently that was part of the propaganda that the Vietnamese used. They would use combat artists. So an accompanying sheet of paper identified this as me being captured, and that's the Vietnamese with his AK-47, some militia people behind him. And Colonel Martin gave this portrait to me, and I value it very much.
And Bob, could you also point out that this is, that there is a photograph of this that is basically famous, that has been used many times, and that photograph exists as well, because we'll see that photograph at the Freedom Museum.
I see, okay. Now this is the, if you're rolling, this is the original painting, but it's been photographed many times, and in various museums, and certainly in the Freedom Museum, there's a photograph made of this being the original. This is the backside of a painting, which I just described. It was captured from a dead North Vietnamese soldier, and in the process, it was in a transparent plastic overlay. And I never looked at the back of it, but this is the back of it. And I just discovered that it says something on it, written by the Vietnamese, and it says, Army men and people of Dong Hoi, parenthesis, Quang Binh, captured alive American pilot Major Shumaker, February 11th, 1965. There were only two things wrong with this. First of all, I was not a major, I was a Navy lieutenant commander, and Shumaker is normally spelled with a U rather than a OE. But it was quite a surprise, and I discovered it just because the painting fell out from beneath the backing.
Okay, beautiful.
What we're looking at is the backside of a painting that has quite a story behind it. It was discovered in Vietnam by a friend of mine who was a retired Marine colonel, but at the time was a first lieutenant. And he and his platoon came across this dead North Vietnamese soldier, and they rolled him over. And here he had on his in his backpack the painting that's on the reverse side of this. But I never knew that there was some writing on the back side of it until just a few minutes ago when I was putting it away, and it was in a little plastic cover, and something happened to the cover, and out popped the whole painting, and I saw for the first time the writing on the back, which I'll read. And it has two minor errors in the thing. He refers to me as a major. I was a lieutenant commander. They refer to me as Shumaker, S-H-O-E rather than S-H-U. But it says, Army men and people of Dong Hoi, Quang Binh, captured alive American pilot Major Shumaker, February 11th, 1965. So that was a long time ago, but anyway, I hope his family survived okay.